Okay, so
Brilliant.
yeah, lovely to spend a little bit more time with you, David. We have these conversations kind of quite frequently, don't we? And over our coffee chats when we're getting together in sunny North Wales. So it's lovely to be able to spend a little bit more time with you and have this chat on camera, and hopefully help somebody as a result of it potentially.
Indeed, and likewise, Aaron, spend some time with you, and to be welcomed so warmly to Sales Geek HQ here in Glasgow.
HQ, yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to be here as well. So, well, as you may have seen, and we've just put out recently on LinkedIn in terms of our collaboration and potentially how we can help businesses across North Wales. And so, you know, we were having lots of discussions about businesses and business in general and some of the challenges that businesses are facing right now, and it just gets a sort of waxing lyrical then, doesn't it, about some of the challenges that they face. So you know, what do you feel, I mean, for you, what do you feel at the moment, especially with the current climate, right, in the current climate, what some of the challenges that some of the business owners are facing right now across the region?
Well, I think it's been a tough year, right?
Yeah.
I think it's been a tough year so far. You know, I've been running Tab in North Wales for 8 years now, and I think the last 6 to 9 months have felt the toughest for certainly the clients that I have and the extended community that I'm part of.
Yeah.
You know, and why is that? Well, you know, clearly the macroeconomic environment is pretty tough, right?
It certainly is.
But I think, you know, that's compounded by you know, the legacy of the COVID period. Cash is extremely tight. And I think that for most sectors, not all, but for most, there's real volatility around demand for their services, makes it very difficult to plan any great distance ahead. So I think the environment is tough right now for any SME business owner.
I think you know, it's a sort of compounding factor, isn't it? Because it's sort of COVID followed by, you know, Brexit, followed by, you know, obviously well-documented war in Ukraine and all of those things. So it just feels like a compounding factor for most business owners. And we have discussions very often about challenges just without those external factors, right? You know, because those are going to give you a unique kind of set of pressures to deal with, on top of potentially what you have to face just running a business day to day, right? So, you know, yes, you've got to deal with those compounding factors. And they are stresses like any other, unlike any other to some degree, and they might expose some small cracks that were in your business previously, now that they become probably a little wider, a bit more fissures kind of as a result of it. So, you know, but there's challenges in running a business without those external factors, right?
You're absolutely right, Aaron. I mean, it's you know, it's both an exciting and also challenging world that a typical small business owner operates in, right? And you know, whatever the reason they got into that business, whether they set it up from scratch as the founder with a bright idea, whether they bought into the family business or just bought a business, perhaps after a period of time in more sort of corporate environment, you know, they will have made that decision, right, with some kind of idols in their mind as to how that is going to, you know, be fruitful for them in the longer term. But the reality is, it's a tough gig, right? It's a tough gig. No one said it's easy running your own SME.
No, and I think, you know, having come out of corporate life, you know, and you've had a long and successful career with that as well. You kind of hop into this similarly with other business owners, because we're business owners also, you know, and you hop into it with the aspiration that it's going to give you the freedom, you know, a bit more time with the family, you know, that free thinking time, that sort of that lauded work-life balance thing. So we feel that, but it's still hard work, right? It's just a different set of problems potentially. So it's no bed of roses, you know, to be able to jump. It's maybe slightly different challenges. So when you're dealing with your client base and when you're having conversations across the region in general, what are some of those challenges typically, do you think, that business owners have? What's the common themes that tend to run through?
Gosh, there's a few. I mean, you know, good old-fashioned loneliness of command for me is top of the pile. I think, you know, that anyone that sets about running their own business with some of the motivation for that being, wouldn't it be great to be my own boss and to set my own agenda and kind of you know, follow the path I want to follow. Well, that's really cool, right? And that's really exciting. But building and running a business, you know, there is, you know, no mind the macroeconomic challenges that we've just been talking
Which is
about. Just the day-to-day building and running a business demands a great deal of the business owner, and often they're shouldering those big decisions all by themselves.
Yes.
You know, and there are good weeks and there are bad weeks, and in those sort of more challenging weeks or months, it can feel really, really isolating, right? So I think for me that's the first and foremost piece, which is one of the good reasons why, you know, working with other, you know, business owners or working with an advisor or coach is a really good thing. You know, the other bundle of challenge I think that then comes is as you start to grow a team. You know, a lot of people might say, well, look, I'm the technical specialist, I've invented a new product, I've invented a new service, I'm all over it technically, but I want to scale this business. And all of a sudden you turn around, you've got a team of 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 people, and you know, managing people is not easy, right? If I think of the, you know, the issues that have been brought to my tab peer boards over 8 years, I hesitate to put a number on it, but I reckon something in the order of 40 to 50% will be people-orientated challenges.
Wow.
So I think there's a massive bundle of issues there that a lot of business owners feel ill-equipped to deal with.
I think you've hit that. I think the loneliness thing, you know, sort of, I definitely feel that in conversations, and you know, to some degree, to the detriment of the service I provide, because obviously I'm very focused in terms of what I need to do and what we need to achieve. But actually, in building that relationship with that business owner, I feel like they really value the having someone to talk about these things to, right, and to be able to some degree offload, if nothing else, if it's not even particularly pointed towards solving a particular problem, the ability of that sort of, you know, what's the problem shared is a problem halved or whatever, you know, it's, I really feel that, and it's a lovely byproduct of what we offer as a result of that. And then the team part of it, without doubt, I mean, I'm sure you're getting feedback all the time in terms of the landscape for hiring. Obviously the hybrid working, you know, the whole post-COVID thing, and now inflation and wage challenges as a result of it. But then you've just brought up that point, particularly the subject matter. The person goes, I'm really good at the thing, you know, and that's what I built my business on. But nobody's ever spent time with me understanding what it takes to actually lead a team.
Absolutely.
And the skills required to be able to do that, because that's a challenge you must see all the time. You know, how do I manage this team now going forward?
Absolutely. How do I turn my vision, you know, my passion that I have for the business into something that I can engage other people in, right? Communicate that effectively, and you know, make it clear what I want people to do, and to hold them to account occasionally if they're not delivering what I think they should. You know, never mind, you know, challenges that might come within group dynamics and how individuals, you know, work together, and that's a bundle of quite challenging stuff for your typical business owner, and many of whom just aren't trained in that way, right? That isn't, or that isn't the way the mind is working, because they're technical focused. So there's a real, so that I find an area in general that weighs heavily on business owners that I know. And you know, accentuated by the current war for talent and all the rest of it, and holding on to people, which, as you say, the demands. I think as each kind of generation, in inverted commas, has come through the workplace, expectations have evolved, and I think it's quite a challenge for business.
Rightly so, though, you know, because the way work has to change, you know, and you know, businesses have to be able to adapt to it and still remain competitive and have their advantage as a result of that, especially if the sort of the market right now is demanding of some, you know, certain working conditions. Presents a different set of challenges again, doesn't it, for the business owner to be able to, how do I manage that still and still, you know, keep going in the direction we need to go. So but you've got to expect that to some degree in terms of the, I think we're feeling shocks after shocks, aren't we, as a result of what's gone on, and we're not really quite sure how this whole working from home, hybrid working kind of works, really, in terms of how you communicate with the team.
We're definitely in a state of flux, and I think even with some of my larger clients, right, with 100 plus staff, it's a real challenge for them, figuring out where the pendulum's going to settle in terms of this sort of hybridisation of the workplace, and where they want to, you know, it feels a bit tail wagging the dog, right? And I think that's one of the things that really business owners and leaders struggle with. You know, it sort of feels something that is hard to grapple, grasp, and control, and it feels like the businesses are a bit at the whim of what the market's going to dictate or what individuals are going to dictate, and I just think it's a tough space for any business owner who likes to control what's going on in their business to occupy right now.
Yeah, and we were also talking about, just in general, because you were saying it's a lonely place, and I definitely see that in the conversations that I'm having. Is that individuals need support, but what are the other barriers, do you think, in terms of individuals? What's potentially limiting growth for some business owners or businesses in general at the moment, and what's some of the challenges that they face, maybe in recognizing that they have a challenge, and then potentially even recognizing that they might need some help?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a sort of human characteristics come into play there. I think a lot of business owners, particularly if they're entrepreneurs and set up their business, they will come at that with I think often a firm belief. I've got absolute belief in this product or this service, and I just want to deliver it to as many people as I can. So belief often is high.
Yes.
And
energy high as
energy
well.
High, kind of can-do attitude high.
Right.
I can run up this mountain. But not everything is plain sailing, is it? And I think it's quite hard sometimes for business owners, entrepreneurs to reflect and conclude for themselves. I think I need some help.
Yeah.
And there can be all sorts of almost psychological things getting in the way there, right?
Yeah.
Some pride issues,
Yes.
Fear of kind of looking silly if I need a bit. It's assumed I know all the answers to everything that's going on in my business. What my staff think if I pull in a consultant or pull in a mentor.
That's right.
So I think there's psychological barriers there.
Well, you use the doctor analogy, and I love that. I think that really resonated because it's very similar in terms of some of the emotional part that's going through, and some of the thinking process that's going through as a result of it. So
absolutely. We might feel, gosh, I don't feel 100%. And perhaps I ought to go down and have a chat with the doctor. I'll put it off.
That's right.
Why am I putting it off? I'm putting it off usually because do I really want to be open? Am I going to get asked some questions I might not like the answers I'm giving? Will it make me more or less worried about what might be going on with me? So we stick our head in the sand, don't we? And I think there's a almost a bit of a British condition about that as well, actually. And so I think we generally know in ourselves when something's not right and we probably need some support. But getting ourselves to the point where we admit that to ourselves can be a real hurdle and really difficult for people.
What do you think some of the tipping points are for, because you say there's the people challenge, and for us particularly in terms of product and service and offering and value proposition and all that sort of stuff. What some of the tipping points do you see as a result of?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I think if we think of businesses that perhaps have been running for a little bit of time.
Because we typically have, because obviously the conversation we're having usually with our sort of the client base we have is that they're established. They're established. A few years,
So whilst I think we're both very happy working with earlier stage businesses, I think the majority of those SMEs that we come into contact with have been in business for a few years.
That's right.
And so my sense there is that for me there's perhaps one or two things happening. I think one, you have that business owner who went into that business with grand ambitions. Right. This business is going to deliver for me what I want out of life. And they're a few years down that pathway.
That's right.
And things aren't where they want them to be. I thought I'd be double the size I am now. I thought I would be.
And the personal thing, I thought I'd be more time out of the business, and that quality of life comes, and maybe the financial reward that comes as a result of that. And that's
so they're feeling, well, we're getting the expression, but they're feeling stuck, right? So I think when someone gets to the point of feeling stuck, and they feel, I've tapped into all my own personal reserves of energy and sort of creativity, but I'm not where I want to be, and actually worse than that, I'm pouring 80 hours a week into this business, and I've not taken a holiday with the family for 3 years, and I haven't been to any of my kids' sports days, and I'm not spending any time with my partner. I think that becomes almost right. I need to change something here.
There was multiple tipping points there, right? There, isn't there? Because there's a lot involved in that. Because I suppose because you and I do very often share the same conversation with our client base in terms of what are you doing this for? You know, what's the purpose of this?
Yeah.
You know, what was the intention when you first started to do this? Because all of those things you were talking about potentially as a byproduct of not achieving, getting that kind of stuck little bit. You know, the intention was to do all of those things, I'm pretty sure, you know, and as a result of that, so, you know, potentially it's not through any lack of desire or innovation or energy, but potentially the business by its nature, what's happened, is it's impacting on all of those things. So the very things you wanted it to achieve for you is not the thing now that it's doing for you necessarily, and it's getting more complex, and there are more people involved, and you know, it's a challenge day to day for revenue and to keep your revenue where you're going. So it's, you know, it's multi-factored, isn't it, as a result of that. So it might not be just one tipping point, but it's ultimately that thing you're trying to get to is those end results, and got you just, at the moment, the business is not allowing you to be able to do that. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think I've got a philosophical view on this, that, you know, anyone that takes the step, you know, to set up a business, perhaps put their house on the line, you know, invest time, energy, blood, sweat and tears, employ people, you know, contribute to the local regional economy. You know, I just have this firm belief, right, that they deserve, that business or that individual deserves to reap whatever that shape of that reward is that they feel they want. I believe they deserve to reap that down the line. And so, you know, many of the businesses I interact with that you know, I don't necessarily currently work with, right? But the conversation very much is about this. You know, I feel stuck. You know, all these personal aspects of my life are absolutely marginalised. And I feel as though I'm spinning plates, fighting fires, and never managing to lift my head out and up and out. To think much further than the end of the week, right? And paying the salaries at the end of the month, and you know, in this sort of hamster wheel of
constantly reviewing and.
So that can be pretty soul destroying, and you know, and I think, you know, business owners of that nature, especially, they're all in, right? It's they're all in. You know, this is the vehicle through which they've decided to
change
run their life.
Stars.
Yeah, absolutely. Their life is going to orientate around this business for however many years ahead. And so that's when I feel that, you know, you people get to this point of feeling stuck, right? Because what's my exit from this, right? I've got to keep going forward, right? I've got to keep going forward.
Conditioned to go forward, and that's what people say I have to be doing to be successful.
Failure is not an option.
I've
just got to take the muck and bullets and keep going forward. And I have a real, I know you do as well, Aaron, because we are cut from absolutely the same cloth. We have a real calling to go and help solve those predicaments for people. And you know, I know we both derive huge satisfaction from feeling that you've helped someone become unstuck, a little bit clear about where they're going, and perhaps some better strategies to help them get there.
To me, that's the bit. It's the sort of positive step forward. Is the moment that somebody's realised that, hey, I feel like it isn't achieving what I needed to achieve, you know, through no fault of my own and through no lack of desire. You know, ultimately, when they make that step, and they make that first step, you and I don't take that lightly. We don't take that lightly at all, because, you know, that's, you know, they're most of the way there as a result of saying, I could do with some help actually, and I could do with some help to be able to, you know, become unstuck. That's a commitment for me, and that to me is okay. I don't take this lightly, because ultimately, if we're as a result of the support that we provide, you know, if we can get them to that end goal, well, I don't think you ever get to the end goal, do you? But if you can get to that goal for that individual, it can be life-changing for them. I mean, absolutely. It can be fundamentally life-changing for them. So the minute that they've taken that first step, for me, that's half the battle. And there's a lot of fear involved in those. We've already talked about. There's a lot going on that may stop you from taking that decision. But once they do, for me, that's fantastic. And you know, you have to get commitment, because it's not easy. It's not all, it's going to be an easy ride for me. If anything, it's probably going to intensify a little bit. You know, and there's a lot more to do. But ultimately we're getting them towards that goal, and to me that's life changing, and they don't take that responsibility lightly.
Not at all, and you know I feel it's a privilege, right?
Yeah,
and
it is,
you know the tab model, if you like. We early in the new engagement, we spend a lot of time. We make no apologies about it. Talking to the tab member around their personal vision, right? What is it they want this business to deliver for them? You know,
Which I love that, and being part of that, having gone into a board and been part of it, it's lovely to see that sort of conversation.
But unlocking from people, you know, what are your hopes, wishes, and wants for the future? What are those aspects of your life that you think right now, you know, you're not really focused on, right? And you know, for me, there's a privilege in people sharing that information, and it's important because the more I understand, same for you as well, the more we understand where people want to go, the more we can really lock in and focus the support, can't we? But it's a real privilege when people share that sort of stuff with you, and you know, absolutely.
I saw that. You know, I felt privileged, and you know, I came along to one of your peer boards, and as a result of that, I felt privileged. And what I, you know, the very thing which we were talking about, the moment somebody's taken that step, when you see them in a room genuinely engaging and really starting to share, and then really starting to hear that feedback, you can see lots of light bulb moments happening for individuals, and they're writing loads of notes as a result of it, and you can see that unlocking is starting to happen as a result of that. And how often do they ever get asked that question? How do you feel? How do you think this is going for you right now? What do you think about this? Where do you want to be? How many people really get asked those questions on a daily basis? Because it's sort of head down, tail up, doing the things they need to do on a day-to-day basis. Payroll needs doing, supplier issues, all that, you know, and you know, so it's wonderful to be able to see people, you know, going, oh, a second, somebody actually really cares about where this business is going, is challenging me a little as a result of that, but in a good way, for that end goal of, I don't want to be doing 80 hours a week. I don't want to be having to be the department head for all of the departments. Everything being channeled through me, because there's a physical and a mental outcome for that potentially, whilst the desire is still there for you to be able to achieve those longer term goals, right? So it's a real maelstrom of stuff that's going on. So being able to be in an environment where somebody's maybe challenging you a little bit, but also helping you get to solve some of those problems, it's a privilege for both, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think you've hit on something else about the peer-to-peer interaction, whether it's a tab board or whether it's just business owners meeting business owners, right? Your clients meeting each other.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the things that you know, a lot of business owners believe, I think, is, you know, my problems are unique, right? It's only me facing these issues, which does feed into the loneliness of command point that we made earlier. But I think when you do interact with other business owners similar size and scale to yourself, you quickly realise I'm not the only one facing these challenges, and actually that in itself can feel as though a bit of the burden has come off your shoulders, because it's right, it's not just me, it's not just my business. So, you know, at a really fundamental level, being able to interact with other business leaders kind of starts to chip away, I think, at this sort of point around the loneliness command. And then you're right, you quickly get into people sharing advice and experience, and all of a sudden you're feeling, you know, wow, this is great, I'm able to make progress here.
That's right.
How do you find that amongst your sales geek clientele? Do you manage to bring them together at all?
Actually, I think, going back to what I mentioned earlier, just that one-to-one.
Right.
Yeah, because typically they're in isolation with each other, but you know, as you know, North Wales is a business community. A lot of individuals know each other really well, okay, and you know, it gives them the opportunity to be able to take that out into the world and have further conversations. But it happens very much on a one-to-one basis, but it's as powerful. I think the fact that somebody else has been plugged in who genuinely cares about you as the person, and also cares about where your business is going as a vehicle to get what you need for yourself. I think that one-to-one interaction is really powerful, because again, more often than not, nobody's asking them that question. How are you? How's things going? What's challenging you? Those great questions, but horrible questions of what's keeping you awake at night. You know, I thinking back in 5 years ago, you had a vision for this business. I'm sure, is it going where you needed to go? Just having somebody to interact with them and ask those questions can be. I always liken it to counselling. Very often they say from a mental health perspective, people that suffer, and a lot of this is fear based, right, as well. So a lot of anxiety involved in it, and some of that anxiety is based on, I feel like it's just me. You just touched upon that now, is that I'm the only one with these problems. But the commonality I get, even though it's one-to-one with clients, is across my client base, they're all sharing, it may be slightly nuanced and slightly different, but it's all along basic themes of people challenges, growth challenges, operational challenges, all of those day-to-day things, and they think it's just them and it's just their business. And when they're allowed in your format and also through mine as well, the opportunity to talk about it, they suddenly realise, wow, it's not just me, right? It's and just because you see a business, it's that sort of comparative thing. We were talking about our client base that's up at the sort of 5 million plus. You look at businesses as you're aspiring to get that and thinking, oh, I'm sure they've got all their problems solved, right? They've got it nailed, but it's not always the case, is it?
Challenges,
exactly. In that context, so even though, like I said, I'm very narrowly focused on a topic of sales and marketing, actually it becomes a lot more of a wider conversation where they get a lot of value from it. Some of the challenge for me is trying to keep it focused back on where it needs to be.
I think that, look, from in the end, you can't be successful in what you do and helping people achieve what they want to from a growth and sales perspective without understanding the wider narrative, because that's the context, isn't it? So
it's the same question.
This is where absolutely there's an overlap in the way we approach things with clients, which is really, really, really interesting.
So I think, it's exciting for us to be working together a little bit more closely and in partnership with each other, and I'm sure we're going to be having conversations with businesses individually and across the region, and because I'm passionate about North Wales. I've lived in Wales all my life. I've lived in North Wales for many years, and I'm really passionate about the business community, and I'm really passionate about potentially what we can do jointly and individually continually to be able to help support them, and to be able to kind of watch this space to some degree. But it was a lovely first conversation, David. I'm sure we're going to have plenty more.
I'm sure we'll have plenty more.
And get stuck into the weeds a little bit more on some of the topics. So really appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Enjoyed that.